Ferrari's 2024 Formula One Las Vegas Grand Prix, which was marked by graining issues but still resulted in a podium finish, became overshadowed by post-race frustration from one of its drivers, Charles Leclerc. Following the event, the Monegasque driver openly expressed his discontent, revealing that he felt certain internal agreements within the team had not been upheld. Charles Leclerc, who crossed the line just over 2 seconds behind his teammate Carlos Sainz, who secured third place, had experienced multiple position changes between them throughout the race. After the checkered flag, Charles Leclerc unleashed his frustration in a heated outburst, which race engineer Bryan Bozzi tried but ultimately failed to interrupt. Bryan Bozzi then reiterated his instructions to Charles Leclerc to focus on picking up rubber, to which he received a response that was both sarcastic and frustrated. Yeah, pick up what you want." On-board shot then showed the Ferrari driver hitting his steering wheel with both hands as he continued driving back to the pits. While this reply seemed to reflect Charles Leclerc's irritation, it may not have been intended as a public message. Shortly after, the Monegasque driver apologized for having left his radio on and quickly changed the subject, inquiring about McLaren's performance and George Russell's race-winning margin. However, Charles Leclerc's comments after the race made it clear that there was an underlying issue, though its specifics remained unclear at the time. Both Ferrari SF24 cars struggled with significant tire graining during the first stint on the medium tires, caused by their aggressive pursuit of Russell, who had managed to keep them behind despite their attempts to pass. Leclerc had willingly allowed Carlos Sainz to overtake him during this phase, as his own pace was poor, but the Spaniard soon faced the same tire degradation and lost performance. In what he thought was an act of team support, the Monegasque driver sacrificed his position, only for Carlos Sainz to experience a similar drop-off in performance, allowing the Monegasque driver to reclaim his spot just before the second pit stops. Carlos Sainz then made his pit stop, but Ferrari was not fully prepared, forcing him to take an extra lap and eventually undercut Leclerc by 3 laps. When Charles Leclerc exited the pit lane after his second stop on lap 31, Ferrari informed him that it would be really close with Carlos Sainz, who was now on fresher, properly heated tires. Ferrari also told Leclerc twice that Carlos Sainz had been instructed not to overtake or put Leclerc under pressure, allowing Charles Leclerc to focus on managing his tires. Despite these orders, the future Williams driver passed Charles Leclerc at the next corner. Charles Leclerc, visibly displeased, sarcastically suggested that Ferrari maybe try in Spanish, before following Carlos Sainz to the finish line at the 6.2-kilometer Las Vegas Strip Circuit in Nevada. Despite the fact that Charles Leclerc did not directly address his frustration during interviews with the written press, Sky Sports pressed him on the issue, prompting him to elaborate further. The Ferrari man acknowledged feeling a little frustrated but downplayed its significance, explaining that such frustration often stemmed from factors that weren't visible to everyone. He stated that there was no need to go into detail about the discussions that had taken place, opting not to continue the conversation on that point. While he admitted that the situation was frustrating, he emphasized that it wouldn't affect the team. Charles Leclerc also noted that, despite the frustration regarding the Drivers' Championship, securing second place was still a positive outcome, and in the end, everything would be fine. The current standings in the Drivers' Championship show Charles Leclerc trailing Lando Norris by 21 points, placing him in the highest achievable position, now that Max Verstappen has already secured the 2024 title. Meanwhile, in the Constructors' Championship, Ferrari is locked in a battle with McLaren, having narrowed the gap to just 24 points after the Las Vegas Grand Prix, with only 2 races remaining in the 2024 Formula One season, the Qatar Grand Prix and the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc's responses, including those made during an interview with Sky Sports Italy, suggested that his frustration was not solely about the specific instruction given to Carlos Sainz, but possibly related to a broader pre-race agreement. However, Ferrari has not provided any clarity on the details of this supposed arrangement. When asked about Charles Leclerc's dissatisfaction, Carlos Sainz, who will be leaving Ferrari at the end of the championship, made it clear that he believed no one at Ferrari was happy with how the race had been handled. One of his key points of frustration was the team's failure to be ready for his second pit stop, but equally vexing for him was the fact that he had been urging the team to call him in during the laps leading up to the stop, only to be ignored. The Spanish driver explained at the end of the Las Vegas Grand Prix that his Maranello teammate had in fact experienced graining on his medium tires, allowing him to pass before the pit stop. However, he admitted that he also grained his hard tires, and as Charles Leclerc started closing in quickly behind him, he anticipated the situation. At the time, Lewis Hamilton was directly behind his future Ferrari teammate, and he was fairly certain the team would instruct him to let Charles Leclerc pass since he was on grained tires and Charles Leclerc was faster. He mentioned that he asked the team 2 or 3 times to pit him, hoping to get out of the way and put on a new set of hard tires to avoid losing significant race time by having to let Charles Leclerc through and then face a battle with Hamilton. For some reason, the Maranello team did not respond by calling him in, and he eventually had to let the Monegasque driver pass a lap later, resulting in a considerable loss of time. When the Spaniard was finally ready to pit, they did not even make the call. He added that while he understood Charles Leclerc might not be happy, he himself was also frustrated with how things had been managed. The future Williams driver acknowledged that no one in the team was satisfied because they had all expected a better outcome. Despite this, he pointed out that he had secured a podium finish, which he hoped would be a consolation for the team, although he believed that P3 and P4 were probably the best results they could have hoped for given the circumstances. Ferrari team principal Frederic Vasseur, on his part, recognized that Charles Leclerc might be frustrated with the situation, where he was told that Carlos Sainz would not put him under pressure, only to have Carlos Sainz overtake him moments later. However, he emphasized that the real issue stemmed from the overall difficulty of the situation, which affected everyone involved. The French manager reassured that the matter would be discussed that evening, adding that it would not escalate into a problem. The Ferrari team principal then stated that he was not worried at all about any suggestions that Charles Leclerc might be less of a team player in the future. The Frenchman explained that it was a familiar situation where comments were made, whether necessary or not, during the race, without having the complete picture. The Ferrari team boss added that they would discuss the matter together and assured that it would not become an issue. George Russell won the Las Vegas Grand Prix, leading home a Mercedes 1-2 ahead of his teammate Lewis Hamilton, while Max Verstappen sealed his 4th consecutive Formula One world title by finishing above Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc is still competing for second in the Drivers' Championship, lying 21 points behind Lando Norris ahead of next week's race in Qatar. But most importantly, Ferrari are now 24 points behind McLaren in the battle for the Constructors' Championship with 2 races to go. The season continues immediately, with the teams now packing their bags and heading off on the long flight to Qatar for the penultimate round of the 2024 Formula One season, which is scheduled to take place at the Lusail International Circuit. It will be the final sprint weekend of the season, which means there are 59 Constructors' Championship points up for grabs.